All right, we are now live on YouTube. Well, actually, 1 second, still loading up. It tricked me.
It takes a minute.
Now we are live on YouTube. Okay, we are live by share.will.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? And I think our purpose this evening was to make a final determination on what we're going to bring to the council on Monday as a suggestion for the $100,000 charter reimbursement. So I guess I would ask if there's anyone that wants to discuss any of the options. I think with the matrix that we have here, it's pretty straightforward as to which was the primary winner on where to spend these funds.
A roll call.
Oh,
Yes.
roll call. Sorry. Let's do roll call. Thank
All right,
you.
Megan, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Chair Hopper. Vice Chair Dodwell.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon. Councilmember Garitano.
Here.
Okay, we'll go ahead and continue our meeting. Thank you very much, Megan, for reminding us we needed to do a roll call, and Teresa too.
Just a point of information.
Yes, sir.
Do we have enough for a quorum?
Yes,
According,
in this situation, oh, sorry, Vice Chair.
I think we only had a total of 5 members on this committee, and so 3 is more than 50%. So
Okay. And I see Nathan is and the
Oh,
I guess might have just joined. Okay.
go ahead and get him in.
Thank
okay.
you.
All right. Chair Hopper is actually joining. And here we go. He
Perfect.
should be on now. Chair Hopper, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I'm getting everything pulled up here now. Okay.
Perfect.
Just
Okay,
to
well-
fill you in, Chair Hopper, we've already called the roll. We'll add you to the roll. And we were just verifying that we did in fact have a quorum before you were added. And now with you, we definitely have a quorum. So I will turn the chair back over to you.
Okay. I suppose. Thank you. All right. So we've already called to order, did a roll call. So I guess the first thing we need is an approval of the minutes. So anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes for the 12/5 and 12/20 meetings? I see Councilmember Dodwell, Councilmember Clark as a second. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it passes. Please notate that, Mr. Lee, and we will move on straight into 4 action, which is the matrix. Mr. Lee, would you mind pulling up the final version of that matrix so we can kind of look through that as we discuss it?
Sure thing, Chair Hopper. 1 second. Pulling it up now. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, Chair Hopper, with your permission, I would love, I can go ahead and give a summary of there's a slight change here just based off we did an adjusted priority score as well along with it to account for outliers. If you'd like, I can go through all this if you'd like, if wanted.
Yes, I would love to have, if we could just do, because I was reading through the explanation in your email about where we pulled all this from. So yeah, as an explaining it to a 3-year-old, it would be great to kind of get a quick overview of what we did there.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Hopper. So in this case, what we have here, and this is from the last meeting, this is just your average score from the submissions that were turned in. This is just simply taking all scores and then dividing by the number of respondents, which is averaged out here in the priority score calculation, just dividing by that number of respondents with the scores added up. So this is just your general mean of the data that was submitted. And after the committee met on December 20th, there was discussion about kind of cleaning the data up a bit to take into account data sets or data points, if you will, that were greater than 2 standard deviations from the mean, which would just be pretty much the average that the individual data points are actually moving away, either positive or negative, away from that mean data, which was about 667.79. And we found that the standard deviation, this would be considered a population because it's all inclusive. It wouldn't be a sample. So the standard deviation would be at 132.668. So in this case, 2 standard deviations, when you add them to that original 667.79, you look at, and if you're looking to take out outliers in this case, you would remove all data points that have a value less than 402.454. And that is identified here, highlighted in red. And then any data points that are greater than 933.126, which are highlighted here in blue. So what we would do in that case, after those have been excluded for an amount here, you would just go ahead and take out whatever excluded amount you're looking at. You would still do the same equation of adding the 2 that are still there together and then just dividing by a new number of respondents because you'll see that change. So this data here takes into account any data. It pretty much excludes any data that were greater than 2 standard deviations away from the mean. So it takes out pretty much any submissions that were, pretty far off from the general response for each number. So that is kind of the description here of how we calculated it. But just to kind of, if anybody's watching here tonight that wasn't here for an earlier session, we did as a committee also go through and rank each of the 17 different criterion for us to look at for this project. One being the least impactful for this specific utilization of funds, and then 17 being the greatest impact, obviously with legal implications. If there's something that's just a roadblock, like you'd have to get a easement that just couldn't exist, that would be a pretty large legal implication that would, affect the project in a negative way. So on the second page here, and this has been posted to the agenda, on page 1, it will have this, but static as a PDF. And then on the second page, it'll have this explanation of the weights, just giving the difference between a 0, 3, 5, and 9. The only one that didn't have the 3 or 5 was this 5-year capital improvement plan wasn't included. The reason for that is, it's either on our 5-year capital improvement plan or it's not. There's not too much interpretation on that one. So in this case, all weights have been described here, and each of the respondents came in and filled this chart out. The original document had this equation moving. I have made it more static now to calculate the mean, but before, when you would fill in, and I actually have the old example up. Can you all see the old example?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just for anybody watching at home that might be interested in the process, you would go in and you say, dear management, 5-year strategic plan, we'll go ahead and put a 9, for example. It would go ahead and automatically update here because each one of these have been weighted with the number corresponding to the committee's attribution. I know that's a mouthful, but you're pretty much multiplying the score you have here by the priority, the weighted priority that you have. So it would be the 9 times 15 plus the rest of the scores here. So if you went through, it was just 9s, maybe you put a 0 here, and these are just examples. Maybe you put a 5, then you go 9 all the way through. You see how that score is going to change. And this is a weighted score to kind of take into account all these criterion. And at the end of the day, each priority score, I received multiple submissions that had these completely filled out. I took that data, and then I went ahead and averaged it while also taking into account any data that might be considered an outlier if taking 2 standard deviations away from the mean. So more than happy to answer any questions at this time, but it seems the committee has kind of gone about this in a pretty scientific matter, and been an absolute pleasure putting this together and working with you all on it.
So I do have one question. So you have the 2 different columns here. So I guess the for the columns in yellow. So the one on the left is your adjusted priority score. That's the one that was adjusted for the statistical anomalies and removing the outliers. And then the second one does not have any adjustments. It's just added up, divided by 3, and that's what it is.
That is correct. So, yep.
Okay.
And the pretty much how you can look at it too is with this 2 standard deviations. A standard deviation in this case, when you take a look at this data set specifically, was 132.66. Typically, if we only did 1 standard deviation away from the mean, I mean, none of the data would have really actually been able to remain. So 2 standard deviations a pretty, good way to look at it. If you're 2 standard deviations away, that's an outlier, I would say, from my perspective. And in this case, it led up to pretty much any score below 402.454 or above 933.126 were excluded from the calculation that led us to these numbers right here.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
But I mean, either way, if we're basing purely off the data, there's a pretty clear winner in this situation. I don't want to necessarily a winner, but top ranking project based off of both calculations, right? So I think it's pretty clear to see that that's where what came in there. And just from having looked at this, there really isn't a substantial change from one column to the next. Realistically, when you're looking at what got adjusted, there's I think the biggest jump is a 7 to an 11 and then like a 5 to a 2. But there's not really major adjustments to where something would fall in line. I think we kind of have to follow the route of the objective route that we took for it, right? Of filling this data in. I mean, believe me, I would love to argue all day to take a bunch of this money and put it towards Old State because that's important to me and my ward, and would argue that till I was blue in the face. But just my opinion is I think we put a pretty solid route together as far as doing this and getting these numbers together. So feedback from anybody else or comments? Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, I agree with you, Chair. Doing it this way, I think, takes away our biases, and especially since Mr. Lee went a step farther and worked with taking out the outliers so that we don't have any biases in this. We just, not that there was a bias intended, but for the looks of it, to everybody looking on, because it was a little controversial when we were discussing this in the council meeting. So I think this has taken out those biases. The ones that I saw that were really had made a difference were Old State Road moved up from 5 to 2. Evergreen Forest moved from 5. I'm sorry, it moved from 2 to 5. And then the trash rebate moved from 11 up to 7. And 109 BA moved from 7 down to 9. So the ones that moved around were not the top one anyway. So this was not my top choice, but after we did this this analysis, you kind of have to go with the data. So I'm looking at it and I think that this looks like a really good presentation to give to the council to explain everything that we've done, plus Thomas's step farther in removing the outliers, the 2 sigma on either side of the mean.
No, I agree. I think we went through it's a very good process. So Councilmember Dodwell.
I was just gonna concur with Councilmember Clark that I don't see where we can have any debate about where the priority needs to lie here, and it will also help us since hope I'm reading this correctly, but to me, it's phase 2 on the internet project is your top priority. And so that gets a project that's been hanging on for many, for a couple of decades, actually. Moving closer to completion so we can get that one off of our plate and begin to focus on other issues within the city. So I think we should be able to get consensus among the council that this would in fact be the way we want to go.
Yeah, and if I could, I will just, in the interest of a little bit of devil's advocate, right, and putting a different, I see kind of almost two paths forward for this. Again, my opinion of this is, we can submit our recommendation, say we went through this process, we explained the process, and our recommendation is this. I think they're also, if they want to kick the can a little bit, for lack of a better phrase, of making a final decision, I think this is a good enough process that if the council really, I think, push back on that recommendation, we could always say, well, we'll send this matrix out to everybody and we'll do the same, exercise and pull the outliers out and see how it scores again. But I would bet, based off of the group that we had in here, and I just off of my personal experience, I guess, and opinion of it, I don't think that we had a lot of folks on this committee that if it was just us picking, that internet access would have been our top choice. And so I think the fact to have had that and know that we had sort of that innate bias and still came out with that as the top answer, I think also lends itself to a lot of credibility of the exercise that we went through. So I think those are kind of the couple options that we have moving forward and, getting this taken care of.
Well, can I make a motion?
You absolutely can.
I move that we take the data matrix that we have here already, attach that to the council agenda. I will let the city administrator and the mayor determine whether that goes into the work session or the full council, so that the council as a whole can have a discussion on it and that we either get a vote, or if not, we choose to send the matrix back out to the entire council.
Gotcha. Is there a second for that motion? Councilmember Clark?
I will second it. I'm a little, they gave it to the committee, well, yeah, to make the determination. If we get all of, that's gonna be a lot of work for Thomas. I'm just thinking if we bring in all of the council. But then if you look at it, I mean, percentage wise, there was 5 of us and we got 3 responses, so maybe it wouldn't be so many. So yes, I'll
Well,
second.
Or maybe I make an adjustment to the recommendation that we present our current findings, explain the methodology that was used and how we came to this conclusion. And then we put the vote out to the council as a whole in concurring with our recommendation that the internet be the top priority and that the funds be used towards that end. And then we'll see where the discussion goes from there. And if for some reason we can't get a final vote and we have council members asking for more details on the data, if we include this document then in the agenda, then they should be able to go through it and see what we've got here.
yeah, if I could again interject in one more comment.
That's fine.
I think, yeah, keeping it I think keeping it clean cut, just again, my opinion, no way of approaching it is putting it on there as this is what our, we went through this process, this is our recommendation. And if there is drastic pushback from the council or, somebody's there's an uproar and they're gonna start burning the building down, then we probably could search back through and say, well, we went through this process. If it would make everybody feel better about making a decision, we can send this out to everyone. You have a week to get it done, and then we'll give you the
Mhm.
results, and then it would be on the next council meeting to do the final vote. But I think keeping it simpler with just saying, we went through the exercise, we feel we have good data, and that this is what we would recommend. And we could, like, again, the sheet's built, so we could always send it out. So just my thought. Anyway, go ahead, Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, my question's to Mr. Lee. Isn't there a time, I have to look back in my notes, was there a council meeting that we needed to have this done by to get it?
The council decided that the committee should have some type of recommendation back to city council in January, which does line up. The main debate that occurred before was that if we wanted to utilize the funds, we were going to need to pretty much and have it count against the 2023 balance sheet. We would have had to enter into a contract or spend the money, which you wouldn't spend the money, but you could probably enter into it a contract if we had a quick decision, which I know, it's not an easy choice to spend $1 million. So in this case, that portion became irrelevant on January 1st, because no matter what, it's now going to count, no matter how we spend it, towards the 2024 balance sheet, which, as long as we have the understanding that this was tied to the 1,010,000, potentially 1,045,000 that was given to us in a windfall in 2023, as long as you have that asterisk next to it, I think it's understandable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just to revisit here, then Councilmember Dotwell, is understanding your motion is that we submit the recommendation to City Council for these funds to be dedicated to the Internet Access Phase 2.
That's correct.
And Councilmember Clark, are you good with the second?
I'm good with that, yes.
Okay.
Real quick,
Any other
Chair.
discussion? Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, I just wanted to ask, from the administrative side, should we present this document as presented tonight, or would you want me to potentially have two documents or add a column here if someone were to want to fill this out on their own so they could work out the methodology? We could add a column here that says, fill in your own or something like that. Or we could have two attachments, have this one attached as well, where you can
I would
actually
attach just what you did for us tonight
Okay.
Mhm.
in PDF form, so that way they can show what we did and what we came back with. Like I said, if there is, a consensus among the council members that they would prefer to go through and complete it themselves and have that, then somebody at the meeting can make a motion to extend it to February and allow time for that. But I think we leave it kind of the recommendation we have and just what we've got here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Garitano?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to just comment because I want to say thank you for this method here that I feel is a scientific method here. I mean, you can't argue with the data there. And I think it will be interesting to hear feedback when it goes to council. For those folks that are not part of the process we've gone through here, I think we'll always run across situations where there's kind of the quantitative analysis versus the qualitative. In fact, I had a conversation with someone, an elderly couple, recently that was affected by the increase with the waste bill. So, kind of thinking that this might be an opportunity where we might also look at providing some of that relief there, which was one of the items. But again, the data here at least tells us another item that is also very important is Internet Phase 2. I mean, we need to get that completed. It affects a lot of people that were not part of Phase 1. And so if we can get that done, that will certainly finally get one major project that the city has been working on for a very long time done. So it'll be interesting to hear the feedback when it goes to council. But that's my comment. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilmember Garitano. Any other comments? All right, well, then all those in favor of the motion to submit our recommendation to city council that internet access phase 2 would be our recommended attribution of these funds, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, I believe that passes then. That being said, I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda, so anything for miscellaneous?
Nope.
I will say that I have enjoyed working with you guys on this project. It actually ended up being, I think, very smooth and informative. Thank you, Councilmember Clark, for all the work on helping get it set up for a very, again, scientific. I feel we captured a lot of the qualitative and quantitative measures of it by the
Mhm.
approach to it. So definitely appreciate your assistance and of course, Mr. Lee, and putting all that together. That's a lot of data to have to sort and filter and add together. So thank you guys
That's a
very
good
much for
time.
your hard work on this.
Appreciate that. I like Excel's fun to play with, so it's actually I enjoy it.
Well, I hope that we can retain this methodology for future issues that arise. It's not perfect for everything that we do, but I think it would be helpful maybe in our planning and zoning committee to put towards this kind of evaluative process in some cases as well. So thank you very much, Ms. Clark, for showing us how to use it effectively.
Yeah,
Well, I don't take any credit for it. Thomas has put this, he's done a lot of work on this, but I love the numbers. And I think in graphs and charts instead of words. So I do appreciate you saying that, but Thomas has put in a lot of work with this. And I think that learning this methodology and using it in the different and planning and zoning or in all of the groups,
Yeah.
when we are prioritizing or when we're trying to root cause and come down to a final answer without bias, it helps to make it more quantitative. And there's other, and sometimes in some cases you wouldn't even throw out the outliers. You'd first ask yourself, and if you did a little, and here's my head thinking in a chart again, is a flow chart. If you say, do I keep this outlier or do I throw it away? You'd first ask yourself, is there a data error? Did we make any errors? And if there was, then of course you throw that outlier out. And if your answer was no, you didn't, then you'd ask yourself another question and say, well, does it significantly affect the resulted analysis of the chart? And if it's yes, then you would have to I'm trying to think of the way I would go with this. Yes, it does. Then you would have to, it would affect the assumptions that the end of the chart the analysis would give you. And so, it just determines whether you keep it or you throw it out. And there are reasons that you would keep it, but in this case, you would not.
Just to add one thing, sometimes you're actually, when you have an outlier, that's actually what you're looking for. It all depends on what you're measuring. So it's just it all depends on it. But the cool thing, and I really appreciate, I have to give credit where credit's due here. Ms. Clark has been an absolute help with helping get this set up. So I can't let her push all of that over. But I did want to also just mention how, it is nice to now we have a backbone, because the thing is, with the x-axis and the y-axis on this chart, even if you want to change up the criteria, you want to change up the projects, or you can actually fill this in however we like. We could start from ground zero on each of these, and it could be just as effective. But it's the framework now that we could use moving forward, which I think will be extremely beneficial. So just thanks, Ms. Clark, for the recommendation.
No problem.
Yeah, could not agree more. It's definitely a valuable tool. I think we can utilize much more in the future.
Mhm.
Well, with that, the only thing left is a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Dodwell,
Said motion.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Clark, non-debatable. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, meeting is adjourned. We do not have another meeting date unless something goes completely off the rails at the council meeting. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, with the current council we have, I don't expect that to happen, so.
I don't either. So, but again, thanks everybody for their time on this and working on this project, and look forward to further discussion around it.
Okay, see you guys next Monday. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy
Yep.
New Year, everyone.
Yes.
Thanks, Nathan. You did a
Thank
good
you.
job.
Thank you.
Thanks.